Greetings, friends. This is Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we will take a detailed look at the situation in Ukraine as of January 16, 2026. A lot of truly important events have taken place over the last 24 hours, so let's begin right away without any unnecessary introduction. Ukraine is entering the most difficult phase of the conflict, the winter period. Winter 2026, according to forecasts and various reports, is expected to be extremely harsh. In some regions, temperatures may drop to 20 degrees C, and against the backdrop of constant massive strikes by the Russian Federation on energy infrastructure facilities, the overall picture looks extremely severe and, in fact, close to critical. Today, the mayor of Kyiv stated that there are at least 300 buildings in the city that remain without heating. In addition, reports mention entire residential districts where electricity has been absent for more than 6 consecutive days. In Kharkiv, the situation is even more alarming. The city's mayor reported that a major critical energy infrastructure facility had been destroyed, and most likely he was referring to CHP plant number 5. At the same time, Zelensky stated today that at least 400,000 subscribers remain without power, and this specifically concerns the city of Kharkiv. Of course, the Ukrainian authorities are trying to stabilize the situation, at least on the information front, showing the population that everything is supposedly under control. For several days in a row, videos have been released focusing on what is being presented as a new Ukrainian know-how, so-called anti-drone systems. More footage has appeared today. In these clips, we can see a UAV, similar to the Russian Geran-type drone, being intercepted and shot down by an anti-drone system. Through these videos, the Ukrainian side is attempting to convince the public that the situation is manageable and that the next strike carried out by the Russian Federation will allegedly be reliably repelled by Ukrainian technological solutions, possibly in combination with air defense systems. However, Zelensky, it seems, does not want to take risks and once again turns to an old and proven tool, that same trump card. A summit is taking place in Kyiv today, and representatives from the Czech Republic are arriving in the capital. Let me remind you, every time Ukraine faces serious problems in the energy sector, questions arise about air defense, and overall stability in this area begins to weaken. European politicians start coming to the country, and we all know this very well. The Russian Federation does not strike Ukrainian territory on days when high-ranking officials from the European Union or the United States are present there. Therefore, during such periods, the situation becomes as calm and stable as possible. It is also important to note that over the past few days, there has been a large wave of news coming from Paris, Berlin, and Rome, stating that Macron, Merz, and Meloni are ready to begin negotiations with the Russian Federation. Moreover, they want to appoint a special representative who would conduct these talks. At the moment, according to reports, the President of Finland is being considered for this role, and it is possible that he will become that person. In other words, a certain stream of signals is also coming from the European Union toward a peaceful settlement, especially against the backdrop of the political crisis that is now being fueled around Greenland. But there is one country that opposes direct negotiations, the United Kingdom. And in this context, Zaluzhny being sent to Kyiv, possibly for appointment as the head of intelligence, may not simply be a cadre decision, but a very specific signal to Zelensky. The message may be extremely direct. If Ukraine's foreign policy begins to change in a way that certain forces do not want, Zelensky could be replaced at any moment by a more reliable candidate. We will keep watching. The situation is truly extremely tense. A strike from the Russian Federation may occur at any time, and all preparations, as it appears, have already been completed. We will see how events unfold further. Now let's move to the line of contact. We will begin with the northeastern part of Chernihiv Oblast and the northern part of Sumy Oblast. Today, Russian sources published a video in which a HIMARS multiple launch rocket system belonging to the armed forces of Ukraine can be clearly seen. The footage shows missile launches, which, judging by the direction, appear to be aimed toward Bryansk Oblast. However, this HIMARS system was detected, tracked, and, as we can see in the video, destroyed using a drone. Thus, these frames confirm the destruction of the HIMARS launcher precisely in the northeastern part of Chernihiv Oblast. Today there is also information about continued fighting in the area of the settlement of Komarovka. Let me remind you that back on January 4th, pro-Ukrainian mapping sources adjusted the map in this sector by adding a grey zone. At the time, this information attracted a lot of attention and was actively discussed. Komarovka was marked as a grey zone, which suggests that the presence of Russian units was detected there, and that clashes may have already begun. On January 14th, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed progress in the Komarovka area, and based on that report, the map was updated accordingly. And by January 16th, pro-Ukrainian OSINT mappers expanded the grey zone in this sector even further. At the moment, it appears that Russian units are continuing to move through a forested area located within the triangle Komarovka, Belaya Bereza, Sidorovka. In practice, this looks like the process of creating a foothold on the Ukrainian side of the border, and it is entirely possible that from these positions the Russian army will move further toward the M02 highway. This sector truly has key significance, especially in the context of strikes deep into Russian territory. It is precisely this foothold that the Ukrainian side uses to launch drones, carry out HIMARS strikes, and conduct other types of attacks. Moreover, let me remind you, just a few days ago, we discussed reports that the United Kingdom is developing new missiles for Ukraine. Their range is estimated at around 500 kilometers, with a warhead weight of about 250 kilograms. And if such missiles appear in the hands of the armed forces of Ukraine, then from this foothold they would be able to reach, among other targets, the capital of the Russian Federation, Moscow, without major difficulty. Therefore, before such weapons are delivered to Ukraine, Russia may attempt to launch a separate operation here aimed at reducing this foothold and increasing the distance to Moscow. Next, we move to the Vovchansk area. Today, activity here is extremely high. The Russian side is actively using drones, striking deep into the rear. At the same time, Russian units continue advancing in the Vovchansk sector itself. According to pro-Russian sources, units of the armed forces of the Russian Federation have likely reached the final stage of combat operations for the settlement of Vovchansky Khutori. Over the past 24 hours, another map adjustment has been recorded. One more small area was marked as a grey zone. It is possible that confirmation from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation will appear in the near future regarding this direction as well. Now we move into the area of responsibility of the West group of forces, and we will begin with Kupiansk. This is where, in essence, the most serious scandal of the entire conflict may currently be unfolding. And if we compare it by scale, it could resemble the most dramatic episode since 2022, the period of the Ugledar assaults in columns, or the most controversial moments related to the Kherson direction. Right now, an extremely serious confrontation is emerging between the General Staff, the Ministry of Defense, and the West Group itself. And the main question is, what is actually happening? Let me remind you, today almost nobody who relies on open sources has a complete understanding of what is really going on inside Kupiansk. A few days ago, Russian Defense Minister Belousov arrived with an inspection visit to the West Group of forces, where he listened to reports from the group's commander, Sergei Kuzovlev. Kuzovlev briefed him on the overall operational situation in this direction, how Russian units are advancing, which settlements have already seen the end of fighting, and what tasks are being carried out now. During this briefing, Belousov asked Kuzovlev one direct question. So based on what I'm hearing, as I understand it, is a clearance operation currently underway in Kupiansk? That was the defense minister's question, and he received a positive answer. However, if you open the maps of any mapping service, pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian, or neutral, you will see that visually the map does not match the report that was presented to the defense minister. Moreover, we know that the Ministry of Defense regularly holds various meetings and roundtables, gathering military correspondents, discussing certain issues with them, and providing some internal information. And there are quite a lot of war correspondents who attend these events and are now saying that the report delivered by the commander of the West Group does not match the real situation on the ground in any way. How this situation will end is unclear. According to the West Group, and conditionally speaking, according to the commander himself, Russian units allegedly fully control the city of Kupiansk. But on the maps, we see a completely different picture. It is also reported that Russian units are in the final stage of their advance and combat operations for the settlement of Kupiansk-Uzlovyi. This is the scale of the scandal and the seriousness of the contradictions. And it is obvious that in the near future, this situation will begin to unfold more openly, and it will become clear what the real status of Kupiansk is at this moment, as well as the status of the entire Ukrainian foothold on the left bank of the Oskil River. After that, personnel consequences are likely to follow, and heads will roll. Judging by the level of tension, avoiding this will be extremely difficult. But as always, we are watching closely and will continue to monitor developments. Over the past 24 hours, additional map corrections have also been noted. For example, today in the area of the R79 highway, Russian units published footage showing strikes against forward positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this sector. Previously, these territories were under Russian control. Then they were marked as a grey zone based on reports from Ukrainian sources and data from various mappers. But today, there is real confirmation that Ukrainian formations are present on these positions. We will see how the situation develops further, but the overall situation remains extremely difficult and tense. Now we move to the Borov direction, and here a truly significant event has taken place, or rather, it did not happen in a single day, but developed over the course of the last few days. Pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian, and neutral mapping sources began actively adjusting the front line in the western part of Luhansk region. This is how the map looked on January 14th. On January 15th, a new adjustment appeared, in the area of eastern Novoye Horivka, as well as near Hrekivka. Then on January 16th, another correction was introduced, this time in the western part of Novoye Horivka. According to pro-Russian experts, these changes reflect the key dynamics of the past few days. What exactly is this about? Let me remind you, up until January 2026, Russian units controlled approximately 99.7% of the entire territory of Luhansk region, and only 3 final settlements remained: Hrekivka, Novoye Horivka, and another area around Novoye Horivka, which were either held by the armed forces of Ukraine or were located within the grey zone. So, as of January 16th, it turns out that Ukraine no longer controls a single settlement in the Luhansk region. Absolutely all settlements there are now either under the control of the Russian army or marked as a grey zone. It is possible that an official statement about this advance will be made in the near future, and then this topic will spread widely across the media and become the subject of intense discussion. Next, we move toward the city of Lyman. Combat operations continue there. The Russian army is systematically striking and destroying crossings that the Ukrainian side is actively building along the Siversky Donets River. In the footage, we can see yet another crossing. We can observe Ukrainian military vehicles moving across it, and then the crossing is hit, presumably using a Tornado S system. These are extremely important frames because apparently this is already the 3rd crossing that the Russian side has struck. The 2 previous crossings were either hit or seriously damaged near Sloviansk, close to the settlement of Myaki. According to the author of the video, the strike there was carried out specifically by Tornado S. Another crossing was damaged or knocked out by drone strikes near the settlement of Rygorodok. In other words, we can see that the Russian side is actively targeting Ukrainian logistics in the Lyman area, aiming to limit supply routes and maneuvering capabilities as much as possible. The obvious goal is to create conditions in which further advances inside the settlement itself become easier and more intense. Today, additional map adjustments have also been noted for Lyman in its eastern part. This information was published by pro-Russian mapping sources, although so far there are no specific ground-level references or on-the-ground confirmations. Next, we move to the Sloviansk direction. Several important updates are coming from this sector today. Apparently, the South Group of Forces reports that Russian units managed to make significant progress near the settlement of Zakotne. Based on the report from the South Group, as well as data from the Ministry of Defense, the front line along the Siversky Donets River was adjusted accordingly. A little later, video footage also appeared, although it only shows the situation from the eastern part of the settlement. In these frames, we can see a Russian soldier raising the tricolour flag at that exact point. Based on the Ministry of Defense report and this video material, a full map correction has been made. And if this information truly reflects the situation on the ground with 100% accuracy, then it means one thing. The Russian army has come right up to a key fortified area, the high ground along the Siversky Donets River around the perimeter of the settlement of Kriva Luka. In the near future, extremely important and heavy fighting may begin specifically for this sector. At the same time, the Russian army continues an active advance from the direction of Bakhmut and Soledar, moving along the M03 highway towards Sloviansk. Map corrections in this area have been recorded for several days in a row. This is how the map has been changing since January 12th. Almost every day, the grey zone has to be expanded and updated based on reports from various mapping sources. As of today, information about Russian advances in this sector is confirmed mainly by pro-Russian sources. According to these reports, Russian forces managed to significantly improve their positions near the settlement of Minkivka. It is possible that this progress will also be confirmed by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation in the near future. If we talk about the city of Kostiantynivka, the main fighting there is unfolding around a small settlement that is a suburb and, effectively, part of the Kostiantynivka urban area, Ilyinka. Russian FPV drone operators are working actively there. At the same time, an attempt is underway to press Ukrainian positions from the foothold near Ilyinka. And the success of this sector directly determines whether Russian units will be able to advance further into the western part of the city. On the Dobrapilya sector, there are no significant changes. However, it is important to note and remind you. Just yesterday, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation published information stating that the Chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, arrived at the position of the Center Group of Forces. This is the same group that previously was responsible for advances in the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad area. Apparently, preparations are now underway to formalize an operation aimed at advancing toward Dobrapilya, and the arrival of the Chief of the General Staff is most likely connected to the need to issue final orders, coordinate instructions, and complete the last stage of preparation. It is possible that the offensive in this direction will resume in the near future, and what is being referred to as the Dobrapilya offensive operation will begin. In the Zaporizhzhia sector, Russian units continue active advances along the Huliaipole River. Today, pro-Russian sources, as well as the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, confirm Russian progress near the settlement of Elena Kostiantynivka. Based on video footage, map corrections, and the Ministry of Defense report, another adjustment has been made in this direction. This is how the map looked on January 15th, and today we see a small but important change. Essentially, along the Huliaipole River, only one settlement remains that may be partially in the grey zone or still under Ukrainian control, Pryluki. It is precisely around this settlement that the final battles may begin in the near future, and after that, the entire foothold along the Huliaipole River could come fully under Russian control. Today, an important report and a major map adjustment also appeared from pro-Ukrainian sources. According to pro-Ukrainian OSINT mappers, the city of Huliaipole has now been almost completely marked in red. This indicates that even Ukrainian sources effectively confirm the near-total loss of this settlement. The Russian army continues advancing actively, and the main fighting at the moment is taking place around the settlements of Sviatopetrivka, Zaliznychne, and Starokrainka. From the western Zaporizhzhia direction, almost no news has come in today. It is possible that a regrouping is underway there, or the front line is being leveled out and preparations are being made for further actions. And that's all for today, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and take care.